We like to call it the Supernatural Hour. And now, our hosts.
Hey, welcome to the Supernatural Hour. This is your host, Raven.
This is Rogue.
This is Chad.
And this is Emmett.
Well, we are back for another fabulous episode of the Supernatural Hour. Our main topic today is Ancient Ramsden, and it's brought to you by Oteos. They have fabulous food. Fabulous. You got to go try it. It's in Linden. It's just there on State Street.
We were there a week ago.
Very, very good. So, Ancient Ramsden. The first time I heard of the Ancient Ram Inn is when Ghost Adventures did it years and years and years ago. I think it was in their first season or two. And I instantly just fell in love with this building for 100 reasons. First reason is if you've ever looked at this, if you have a minute, do it right now. Sit down, Google Ancient Rams Inn. This building is the quintessential English cottage. It's quaint, and the bricks, and this building was built in 1145, people. It is like almost 1,000 years old.
There isn't a plumb or square wall on the whole thing.
No.
I'm looking at it right now, and it really is ancient.
It is. And if it ever is for sale, I'm buying it. And I'm moving there. And I'm going to live there forever. Because it is adorable. I mean, just the grounds and the building itself. You know that Goldilocks is going to come skipping out of there with her basket of food at any second. With a demon behind her. But,
Right, yeah.
Whatever. Anyway.
Yeah.
But it's 1,000 years old. Can you imagine just all the stuff that can happen over the course of 1,000 years?
Right.
And they're just because of that, the fact that this is one of the most haunted buildings in England doesn't surprise me.
Everything in England is haunted.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've decided that pretty much everywhere is haunted, but, just doing the research and making sure I knew everything that was going on, so I could be prepared to talk on this podcast about it. There are some disturbing things that happened in this building that just adds to everything.
To its creepiness?
Yes. So here's some of the stuff. Over the course of 1,000 years, there's going to be all sorts of people with all sorts of issues and all sorts of ins and outs going on with this building, right?
Right.
But some of the dark and disturbing past that's happened in this building is witchcraft, murder, torture, kidnap, satanic worship. They also believe that there were some pagan ritualistic killings that happened in this building. And so I think that lends a lot to creepy stuff going on in a building.
And did you say when it was created? When was the thing first started?
Yeah, 1145.
Okay.
So literally coming up on 1,000 years.
Every crime you could think of has been committed in that building in 1,000 years.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Didn't a man live in it for 50 years, like as his home?
Yeah.
Oh, the owner. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, he did. His name is
John Humphreys.
John Humphreys. I was going to say I could see Humphreys, but I didn't see it. I just have Mr. Humphreys.
And he passed away just a little while ago.
2017, yeah.
2017. Yeah, and so his family wouldn't even stay there with him because of all of the different things. And I think that he had kept, or there was like ritualistic items throughout the place that while he lived there, he just kind of kept.
Right. So it was originally... It was originally built as a keeping house, kind of like a boarding house for the slaves and workers who were constructing the local church. It's called St. Mary's Church.
Right.
After St. Mary's Church was finished, they left, and the building became the home of a priest.
The vicarage, right?
Yep.
The first vicarage.
And it had... Obviously, over 1,000 years, it's going to have a lot of different owners, with a lot of different things, different functions. In 1930, the house was privately owned, and It was a fellow by the name of Maurice the Bath who bought it and restored it. And then the inn was sold to John Humphreys in 1968, and he bought it for £2,600. And he actually dedicated his life to restoring and preserving the inn. And this inn is so cute and so beautiful that if I had the money and if I had been alive in 1968, I get it. I totally get it. This is a building that's worth restoring. They make cross-stitch patterns of this building. I mean, I don't know if they do, but if I were a cross-stitch company, I would make a pattern of this building. I'm going to tell you how beautiful this is like 500 times in this podcast. Be prepared.
So the haunted nature and the claimed succubus resident, that doesn't tarnish the charm of this place at all for you.
Oh, no, that makes it better.
And the Incubus.
Yeah.
It's like, and it has ghosts. Sweet.
Yep.
Ooh.
Oh, and yeah. It's got everything.
Yeah, so the Daily Mail did an interview, and Humphrey's daughter, Caroline, she described growing up, she calls it in the shadows of the ancient ram. And she said it was so spooky that there were several nights she slept outside. She slept outside in a caravan, and I'm going to guess that that's a van.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it means like an actual, like a Dodge Caravan, or if it's an English word. But she said she was actually afraid to enter the property at night. And she said it was normal. I'll just read her quote. She said it was normal for us to see people running out of the house screaming in terror.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't just the family, making up stories. It was, I mean, they had it as like a bed breakfast inn for a long time.
Who named it the Ancient Ram Inn? Is that known? Was that Humphreys or the previous owner?
I don't know. I don't know that I ran across that in my...
Or maybe that goes back to antiquity.
Yeah, that might be what it was called back in the day.
Yeah.
But it's just a cool name. To me, it sounds very English because they name all of their homes. And Ancient Ram just sounds kind of badass, honestly.
Ancient in front of anything.
Like quaint, but in your face. The Ancient Ram. I don't know. That's just me. We just lost all of our listeners, but okay, whatever. She's crazy. We're out. So, speaking of ley lines, the Ancient Ram Inn is located directly on the crossroad of two ley lines.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and ley lines, like we actually did a podcast years ago about ley lines, and I wouldn't mind doing one again, just kind of revisiting it. And
it's getting personal in a hurry.
It is, and ley lines, as we've talked about, they're usually you can draw through several places of geological and spiritual importance. So oftentimes they'll run through churches or, cathedrals or burial grounds. That just, the energy that they put off draws that kind of a thing. And I'm sure, the churches and the graveyards and some of the things that are built there probably also add to that. It's probably a give and take.
Yeah, and the lines just funnel that energy in.
Right. So when I read that, I was like, oh, of course it's on ley lines. Mm-hmm. So one of the ley lines that crosses the Ancient Ram's Inn also crosses the center of Stonehenge.
Wow.
And one of them can be traced through Glastonbury Tor. I don't know what that is. Just FYI. But ley lines are basically energy tracks. And people say that the ancient energy of Stonehenge really feeds the paranormal activity along the places in that line. And I've been to Stonehenge. And it definitely has a very different feel to it than most places. It has, it's like if you've ever visited an old battleground or an old cathedral or, someplace where it just feels reverent. That's definitely what Stonehenge felt like. but there was a very latent buzz of energy that I could feel. And at the time, I would have said, oh, hey, that's a ley line. But looking back now, I go, oh, hey, that was a ley line I was feeling. So...
Wow. Now I want to get a map of all the ley lines in England and see where they all run.
Yeah, so when Emmett goes MIA on Marco Polo, we'll know what he's doing. Okay, but we're not talking about Stonehenge. We're talking about the ancient Ram Inn. Let's get back to that a little bit.
I thought it was cool that it was on a ley line. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. So not only is it on top of a ley line, but it's on top of a 5,000-year-old pagan burial ground. So, I mean, they couldn't have built this in a more condensed energy spot if they tried.
And who knows? Maybe they did.
Right.
Exactly. So in this inn, in the basement, they have found dozens of children's skeletons and silver daggers. And so it's almost like it was a ritualistic, sacrificial sort of a thing. I mean, killing children is creepy, but they weren't just being creepers. It was part of their ceremony, part of their religion.
This is all in the pagan section.
Right. So they believe that it's directly linked to the pagan rituals and child sacrifice. It wasn't just some serial killer,
Right.
going on a rampage. So, tons of people had visited, and I know for a long time you could go and stay there. And now, Carolyn, the daughter, Carolyn Humphreys, they've pretty much closed it to the public, but ghost hunters can go there. They still let ghost hunters go. So, I mean...
It's not just a bed and breakfast.
It's not just, hey, we're going to go visit Aunt Mabel in England, and we're going to stay at this cute little inn. But... if you...
There's a bucket list item right there.
Right? This is probably in my top 5.
I did that as a bucket list item a few episodes ago.
You did, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, if anyone wants to go and ghost hunt it, all you have to do is call up and say, hey, we want to come ghost hunt your inn, and you can get in.
Wow.
So one of the things, is the Humphreys, they bought this building. And they dedicated, at least John dedicated his life to restoring it. And I'm sure the family just, your family, so you're going to help Dad, right? But they found a lot of demonic artifacts and just really strange things inside as they were renovating it. So they hadn't been living in the house very long before they started noticing the strange activity. And it didn't take long. One of the first things they found was a goat's hoof lodged behind a brick in the chimney. And then they began to find other tributes to the devil, as they call it. Some of the things they found were mummified animals. They found daggers that looked like they'd been used, which would be super creepy. They found jars that were full of strange objects and suspicious-looking liquids. They said that one of the objects looked like it could have been a human finger. And another thing is it's built on what they call Potter's Pond. It's really marshy, a lot of streams, and they've actually had to divert some of those streams in order to lay foundations for the church. So this would have been, back in the 1100s. And a lot of people have theorized that was instrumental in opening a portal for dark energy.
Changing the water course.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, there's one more thing. Let's put a finger in this jar and bury it in the wall and then move the water. And, I mean, you couldn't have asked for a more perfect storm here. They also think, with a lot of the Christian architecture in the Middle Ages, that St. Mary's Church, which is very, very close to the inn, was built on that ley line by intention. They think that they knew about those ley lines and built it there purposely.
Wow.
So, as we've talked before, John Humphreys just put his heart and soul into into this building to refurbish it and to, make it a bed and breakfast. But after a few years, it just wasn't viable as a bed and breakfast anymore, simply because it had gotten far too dangerous. And when you've got the public, and what I mean the public, John Humphreys, not a ghost hunter, just loved the building, loved the history, wanted to, preserve it and keep it going for years and years down the road. When he says, no, it is too dangerous, we cannot just have, people come here and close it. That that it's going down. And at least at the last prices I could find, it's pretty affordable. You can stay there for £25 to £30 a night.
Oh.
Did his family move out before he shut down the business, or is that about the same time? Do we know?
I think it's about the same time. I know he lived there the entire time.
Yeah, they abandoned him.
Yes. His daughter owns it. I don't think she lives there, though. I think she lives off-site. So let's talk about some of the stuff that is going on there. So first of all, there are some friendly ghosts. They do have some Caspers, as it were. So there's the spirit of a 15th century woman who was sentenced to death for which she was accused of witchcraft, which is not surprising. She tried to escape being killed by renting a room in the inn and thinking that she could hide there, but she was found and burned at the stake. She doesn't mean any harm, although she does not like to be called a witch. And
you're not a witch,
right?
And, you've been burned at the stake for being a witch,
right? But you're not.
But you're not a witch. Yeah.
Kind of peeve you, but she's not. She gets grumpy if you call her a witch. And the room that her spirit lingers in is called the witch's room, which probably doesn't help. But she might be a little grumpy, a little torqued about being called a witch when she's not. But she's not malevolent. And I think we were watching a video, and they said that someone had gotten a picture of her in the window, and it showed the window, and we paused it, and I'm like, I don't see a picture. I don't see anything in that scene that looks like a witch. So I don't know if that was the witch picture or if it was just a picture of the window. But someone has gotten a picture of her through the window. This doesn't help with the whole witch thing, but apparently in that room there's also a black cat ghost.
A cat ghost?
A black cat ghost, not any cat ghost, a black cat ghost.
Wow.
It might have been the witch's cat, but it could have been one of the mummified cats they figure is about 500 years old that Mr. Humphreys found inside the wall when he was renovating. At the time, having a dead cat inside your wall was considered a lucky charm. I think that smells like it would be, or sounds like it would be stinky, but that's just
I'm glad times have changed.
Me too. But they've also seen the ghost of a young girl behind this, again, behind the window in the room.
Is that the girl in the attic?
I think so. And people that see her says that she's waving. And they say the spirits of former owners like hanging around in the sitting room. So I guess if you own the building and you die, at some point you just come back and go, whatever, I guess I'll just hang out in the sitting room.
Find a corner.
After 1,000 years, that could be pretty busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
No doubt.
So, I know. Can you imagine Grand Central Station? This is my house. That's my house. It's my house. It's my house. That's probably fun. Okay, so we've talked about some of the dark practices, but during the renovation of the basement, John Humphreys accidentally dug up a grave with several children's skeletons at the foot of the staircase. And, again, there's a lot of daggers. And just the way it was, it just kind of led to, we think this was a pagan ritualistic thing. The broken knives were still inside the skeletons. And one of the things that people that have been there have said they heard is many, many people say that they hear the cries of children. So this is possibly where this could come from, is from this burial ground. So when people went there and they realized, oh, this is where all these children were killed, regardless the reasons, it's still sad. And so when people would come to ghost hunt or, before they closed the inn, they would bring stuffed animals and they would put stuffed animals all around down there. And they said the crying became less with the stuffed animals, but it never completely vanished. There's a spirit of a young girl by the name of Rosie, who I think is different than the waving spirit upstairs. She's been seen floating through the hallways. But people say, is it really a child spirit, or is it a type 3, a demonic entity that is, masquerading as a child? A lot of people think the pagan rituals, the death of children, may have opened up another portal for dark energy. So, again, you really couldn't have masterminded this building to be any darker if you tried.
Yeah, it's just a supernatural potpourri. Everything you can think of in one spot.
Right? And that's going to happen with a building that's 1,000 years old.
Yep. Exactly.
Oh, sorry, Rogue, were you saying something? Oh, okay. So, attacks. There have been attacks there. Mr. Humphreys himself said he had several unpleasant encounters with his housemates. He says the very first night he stayed there, he was pulled from his bed by the arm by an unseen force. His bedroom was terrorized by a poltergeist who kept banging on the windows. He decided that being drugged from his bed was not very much fun. When you lay down and you're trying to sleep, being yanked out doesn't, really, it's not really conducive to a good night's sleep. So he got this giant wooden crucifix and hung it in his bedroom. And so the, getting yanked out of bed stopped. So if you get yanked out of bed a lot, wooden crucifix, you're good.
Excellent.
He says the banging on the window never truly ceased. It just moved on to another room. And it's a large building, but not so large that if you're just banging on a window in a different room, you're still going to hear it. He actually had a wife. Doesn't mention her name, but they refused to stay at the inn and they moved to a different house. They're like, nope, we're out. So John actually ended up living there by himself. And he said he never once thought about leaving the inn, even though he wasn't alone. I mean, he was alone as far as his family not being there, but he wasn't alone.
Makes you think about, was this guy really, was he possessed? Did he have an attachment? Was there something keeping him there and forcing the family away and making him not see that?
I know, because you would think you'd go with your family. You think you'd say, okay, I'll go with your family and maybe I'll stay here on the weekend or something, or, during the day.
Yeah, but we see that before, like, one owner will get attached to the property and won't leave, and, the other partner can't stand it. So there might be something to that. It might not have been all his decision. Right.
Absolutely. But let's say it was. It's super cute. If I haven't said that before, I would totally have been like, no, I'm sleeping here. I don't care how haunted it is. It's cute. Satan's here. I don't care. Still cute.
Yep.
Cute house.
I might have issues I need to work on. So, Mr. Humphreys and I think we probably would have gotten along. He loved antiques. I love antiques. Antiques are amazing. But as you all know, we've talked about it a little bit here and there. They can have attachments of their own. And so he would go out and he would buy all these antiques and, antiques that he had. And he would put them in his ancient inn because that makes sense. It's 1,000 years old. Let's put old stuff in here, right? You're restoring it, preserving
Yeah.
it. You want it to look period, so it makes sense. He found an antique painting of a pastor named John Wesley, and he was super excited to have this painting. But he hung it in the stairwell, and he said all hell broke loose. So doors that had been closed for years swung open and slammed shut. There was banging on all of the windows. His daughter's dog didn't even dare entering the stairwell when the painting was up. So needless to say, he didn't leave the painting hanging in the stairwell for very long. It got rehomed fairly quickly.
And the activity stopped when the painting was removed, of course.
Yep, they took the painting out. So, the spirits in the home did not appreciate an antique painting of a pastor. So that kind of tells you something. Oh, a man of God? No, we're going to have a little temper tantrum here.
Yep.
Yeah.
So here is one that will be everybody's favorite. An incubus and a succubus.
Ooh.
So these demons, the incubus and the succubus, were probably one of the main reasons that the inn was no longer fit to be just, a regular old bed and breakfast. It's a little off-putting when, spirits try to fill you up in the middle of the night.
They lost their Six Flags rating.
Yes. So just in case you don't know what an incubus and succubus are, an incubus is a male sex demon who would take advantage of female visitors. An incubus, some say, feed on the female hormones. So, he likes those female hormones, crawls in bed with you. Yeah, I'll just stop there. Succubus is similar, but female. So everything I just said, but reverse. The female demon that really feeds on the male hormones. And that said that some people would even jump from the windows to escape these encounters that they had with these two particular spirits. John Humphreys actually shared his room with the incubus until his death. And as he said, that he was dragged from his bed by violent entities and raped routinely by the building's resident succubus. He said since suffering those supernatural assaults, he always carried a Bible with him around the house. I think if that happened to me once, I'd be moving out with the family, and I'd be going, nope.
But it's so cute.
At that point, the cuteness needs to be observed
from a distance.
a different way.
I found our latest topic.
Not an overnighter.
Favorite book.
Ooh, what is it?
Wow.
My favorite book that our topic's in here. I didn't even notice. There's a picture.
Oh,
There it is.
See,
There
isn't
it
it
is.
cute? It's cute.
Isn't that a great, cute place? But in here, that's one of the top things that it mentions is that the gentleman was raped by an incubus and then shoved into a fireplace. It's one of the stories that they talk about in here.
Yeah,
That's not very pleasant.
No, it just gets worse, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not nice.
Yeah. Okay, so
But it says it's on an intersection. Did we talk about that? An intersection of the ley lines. Did we talk about it just being on one? This states it's in an intersection.
Ooh.
No, I think Raven did
Did I
say
say?
that. Yeah,
Did I say intersection?
there were two that were an intersection there. Yeah, I think so. And that that tells you right there that it's going to be even more charged.
Active.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and we get buildings, and it's like, okay, this building is haunted, or this barn has a ghost, or there's something upstairs. This building, I mean, it's large for a building that's 1,000 years old, but it's not enormous. But I mean, we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rooms to talk about. I mean, every individual room in this house has its own different story. So the next room is called the Room of the Bishop. And it says, warning signs and biblical passages seem to go hand in hand. The most haunted room in this inn is on the first floor. It's called the Bishop's Room. And they figure, and when I say they, the owners, ghost hunters that have been there, they figure that there's no fewer than 9 entities in the Bishop's Room. So one of the first ones is a friendly ghost. It's actually a small Cavalier King Charles dog. They say that they often see it in the corner of the room. There's the spirit of a dark monk. Some bishops and nuns are also seen and felt. A lot of people think that maybe this was the room where a lot of devil worshipping took place. People that have been in this room claim that they have been lifted by something unseen and thrown across the room. The bed tends to levitate, which would be a little off-putting if you're just spending the night there. The screams of a man are heard. And Rogue, this one actually says that the man the screams of the man that you hear in this room, they believe that he was killed because his head was pushed into the fireplace.
Oh.
So I don't know if it's the same story, different story. It's 1,000 years. I'm sure more than one person was killed with fire in this building. So, you know.
Well, and interesting to hear multiple
Unfortunately.
people talking about getting dragged out of the bed, too.
Right. So there's a spirit of a young woman in this room. She's a little different. She appears from the ceiling hanging upside down by her legs, which is a little disturbing.
That's a little different.
You know, just a little different run-of-the-mill ghost. There's also a Roman centurion who appears on horseback and rides through the walls. And this happened once while there were 2 plumbers working in there, and it obviously scared the absolute soul out of them. They left and didn't come back. Guests have also seen strange mists forming in front of their eyes and heard giggles and screams of children in this room.
Wow.
I think the creepiest one to me is going in and seeing a lady hanging from the ceiling upside down. And it makes you wonder why. And then part of me says, I don't know that I want to know why.
A Roman on horseback could surprise me.
That would be so cool, though. Definitely startling.
Just wait 5 minutes and you'll see anything in there, it sounds like.
Pretty much. So let's move to the attic. Just in case you wondered, it is also haunted. Things that they hear up there, they say they hear sounds of something heavy being dragged. And this might explain the hanging upside down woman. Supposedly, one of the former owners had a daughter who was murdered in the attic by being hung. And this was the room that Carolyn Humphreys used as a bedroom for a few days before she said, I'm out. And in this attic, you can't go all the way to the back because the floor is pretty unstable. But that's going to happen after 1,000 years.
Yeah, after 1,000 years, it even has a floor
Know,
or a ceiling.
All right, so we're going to move to the kitchen. So an 18-year-old man entered this room one day during a ghost hunt, and he says he was thrown very forcefully against a wall. And the same thing actually happened to Mr. Humphreys. So a young couple ran from the kitchen, just completely panicked because they saw the spirit of a woman come up from the kitchen floor. And they said that later a woman and her baby were found buried at the same spot where this couple said that they saw a woman rise up out of the floor. And the interesting thing is I didn't find a story of who this woman and her baby were, but it does sound like it's different than the children that were killed in the pagan rituals. Mm-hmm. So behind the bar that kind of is adjoined to the kitchen, there's another young woman that's buried there, and she presented herself to Carolyn, the owner's daughter, several times, and actually spoke to Carolyn, told her name was Elizabeth and that she had been murdered by a highwayman. And then there's a space between the roof that was used as a hiding place by 2 highwaymen, and they may have been the ones that murdered this woman that was there. they may have come in. She may have been a tenant or a resident of some sort and killed and buried her. But we don't know.
Is this burial ground like actually under the house itself or just on the grounds outside of the house, or do we know?
I think it's under. I don't
actually physically under the structure.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, that'll add to it.
Yep. The kitchen had once been a tack room for the former stables that had been there. In its history, people had gone in with the divination rods and found an old well beneath the floorboards, a deep pit where murder victims were dumped. You just wonder if there's an ad in the paper. Have you murdered someone recently? If so, please call. We have a pit for you. I don't know how they... Maybe is it just known, hey, there's a really cool pit with the rams in. The area that was around this well was one of the areas where there were nightly disturbances. And one of the first places when the Humphreys first moved in that they noticed activity and noises and just disturbances. It got to the point that Mr. Humphreys actually put a cross over the top of the well mouth, and then the disturbances there kind of died down.
He's probably put crosses all over this property, it sounds like.
I know, right? Every room. But even though...
Paneled it in crosses.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is, even though he's got these crosses everywhere, it sounds like it's just kind of dulled it.
Well, after 1,000 years, the spirits will just say, yeah, another cross.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's like, how many crosses have they seen?
Yeah, exactly. They've been there since, some of those spirits, maybe since before Christianity, so who knows? The cross may not even, have any meaning for them.
So there is a barn there. It's an 18th century barn, so it's quite a bit newer. They say it's haunted by a 7-foot tall dark figure. This figure is violent. He is aggressive towards men, but he tends to favor a certain type of female. His shadow appears in the doorway of the barn, almost like it's protecting something. Not like a stance of this place is mine or anything, but almost like he's watching over. So he's aggressive, but protective at the same time. So if
Has it always been a barn? Was it purpose built as a barn? Do we know?
It doesn't say. I would guess so because it's just from the 18th century. So
recent.
It's a lot more recent compared to the actual inn. So my guess is...
It's only 200 years old, so 300 years old, so it's recent.
Yeah. Yep, it was brand spanking new.
Yeah, really.
No, it sounds to me like it's a barn, probably, built there so people could, put their horses up for the night and park their carriages and stuff.
And it's got a big protector.
Yes.
Sounds like.
But I want to know, I couldn't really find anything of the certain type of female. What certain type of female? Like a big bosomed?
It didn't say what his type was, huh?
Was it, tall and thin? Did he like wafy women? Did he like women that had a few too many cookies? I mean, I don't know. It didn't really go into what type. If you know what type, let us know, because I'm super interested. Yeah, so as far as the ancient ram inn today, Chad mentioned that John died in 2017. And we talked about his daughter Caroline taking over his legacy and keeping it going. And ghost hunters and people interested in the paranormal are still welcome to go, even though they don't have it open just as a regular bed and breakfast. Would you guys dare go?
You bet.
Yeah, I'd be in.
I am totally in.
Yeah.
If I'm ever in England, we are spending the night.
Yeah. I would go, but not with the intentions of sleeping, but with the intentions of putting up equipment and investigating.
Absolutely. There will be no sleeping.
Yeah.
I will be setting up equipment and cameras and I would stay.
That would be great.
I would stay for more than one night because there's a lot of rooms to be investigated.
It's so cute. It's
And-
just so damn cute.
It is.
Because
See,
it's cute.
Emmett, you
Yes.
get it.
Yeah.
You get it. I actually have some accounts of people who have gone there as ghost hunters And I find this quite interesting. Some stay overnight, while some have left through the windows. One lady named Beverly said, "I loved it. It was on my bucket list, and I wasn't disappointed." A fellow named Ben, who I'm very jealous of, says, "I love it there. It's my favorite location and down the road from me. If it was down the road from me, I would be there every week." One visitor said, "I've been there on numerous occasions. Some nights have been quiet, and a few nights have been amazing." You know, we've run into that on venues that we have gone to several times. There's times when we've gone and there's nothing. And you're kind of bored, and you hope that you at least get a shadow figure, in the corner of your eye. And then there's, I'm just going to go to the family tree. There was one night I went, and we actually left early because there was nothing going on. And then we had nights at the family tree where the whole team literally left the building screaming and ran across the street. So I get it. Depends on the moods of the ghosts. A gal named Amanda said, "On one occasion I was in the witch's room and saw a large black shadow, and the person I was with was pushed. The table lamp in the room was knocked over. I've seen a lot of unexplained things there."
Is that the room with the wolf in it? The wolf spirit? I read about a wolf or a dog.
I think so.
Ghost.
So there was two dog ghosts. One of them was in the witch's room, and one was in the bishop's room.
Wow.
The American Paranormal team, Ghost Adventures, visited the inn, and in their stay, they caught a demonic growl. They got shadowy figures that ran out of the bishop's room. They got orbs and a number of EVPs. And another group that went in, a paranormal group, said, "I find it's always been very active there. The energy changes in each room, and you feel like you're being watched constantly."
And he said that during an investigation?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow.
We talked about this a little bit, but it says the most notable spirit is the witch that was executed, the one that was accused as a witch.
There'd be some anger there.
Yes. Even though she's fairly tame, it does say that she will physically harm visitors by scratching them. It's like, if she's one of the nice ones and all she does is scratch you, how bad are the other ones? She has actually been recorded, though. And when you do get recordings of her, she's usually taunting the people that are investigating by laughing. She has been recorded as saying, "I'm special." But if you listen really close, you can actually hear that she has just a hint of an English accent, which is interesting. The other one that they didn't claim they didn't mention necessarily which room she's in, but she's called the High Priestess, and apparently she's very scary. A few people have reported to being woken up in the middle of the night by a woman wearing white. They describe it as white religious clothing. So not just a cloak, but something that makes them think it's a religious thing, looking down on them. Her arms are raised in the air, and she's chanting in some strange language. So you almost wonder if she was the one involved in the pagan ritualistic
That's what I was
deaths.
thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Pagan.
Yep. So there's a fellow, he's the Reverend John Yates, retired, former Bishop of Gloucester. He is said to have called the ancient ram the most evil place I have ever had the misfortune to visit. And he said that after attempting an exorcism, which failed. And locals will cross over the street rather than walk past the ancient ram inn at night.
Wow.
So all of that just makes me want to go to it even more.
Yep, I agree.
So, road trip.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, that is us for tonight. Stay spooky, my haunty friends.
Love you, Nicholas.
Hey, good night.
Back to the future. See you next time.
I like that, Emmett. That's awesome.
You've been listening to the Supernatural Hour at AdvancedParanormal.com. The Supernatural Hour is part of the Radio Ronin network found at RadioRonin.com. Copyright 2021 by Advanced Paranormal Services.